everyone, Barry here from Mitosu Crafts. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you for joining me for our Fun Fold Friday video tutorial. For today's video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make this tri-fold card right here using the Art Gallery stamp set, the Floral Gallery dies, and the painted texture 3D embossing folder, as well as some other items, some gold leafing on here as well. So this is the fold right here. It's called a tri-fold card, and that is what I'm going to show you how to make right now. Have fun, enjoy, and let's crack on. First things first, you're going to need to take some A4 cardstock, and this here is measuring 6 inches by 11¼ inches. You will need to take some designer series paper. I've used some 12 by 12 designer series paper, and I've cut this down to 5¾ by 7½ inches, and I'll show you how to cut that in a moment. But if you start off with that one, it's about 5¾ by 7½. You would also need a basic white piece of card here, measuring 3¾ by 1�5" inch, and some scrap with basic white for your stamping and die cutting later on. We'll be using obviously other tools along the way, some inks, brushes, a bit of heat embossing. We'll also be using this lovely gilded leafing right here, which is a lovely, look at that. Try not to breathe too much when you do this. I'm going to be showing you how to use the gold leafing, gilded leafing as well. Take your 6 by 11¼ piece of cardstock, and you want to score this now along the long edge. So along this edge right here, and you want to score this at 3¾ inch, which is 10½ centimeters, 7½ inches, which is 19 centimeters. Okay. And then we want to take it back again, and then we will want to score it at 2 inches, but only down to 1 inch. So if you've got one of the trimmers here, you can see that it's got the ruler along the edge here, and we're going to mark it up at 2 inches here, and then score using the score blade and take it down to 1 inch. And then we will do the opposite side, so leave it at 2 inches here, and then score up to 5 inches. Okay, so it's going to take that and then come down to 1 inch. And then up to 5 inches. Okay, and then move that over to 5½ inches, and then do the same. So down to 1 inch. And then up to 5 inches. Then we just want to now cut between those two lines. So move the score out of the way, line up at 1 inch over here. Bring your score over, and then we can then take that to 2 inches down to 5½ inches. And that cuts that channel out there. And then this is where this trimmer comes in handy. We can now use the bottom part, and we line this up with 1 inch over here, and then we just cut between the two. So this will be between 7 inches and 10½. Okay, but luckily you can see you've got some lines on here, which as you bring that down, you can then just line these lines up with your ruler on this side here, and that's where you can stop as well. Okay, but if you are just using it, it's from 7 down to 10½, and then when it's this way round, it's 2 down to 5½. Okay, so that is your card basically constructed, cut and scored. Whilst we've got our trimmer out, I'm going to take my designer series piece of paper, and I'm going to cut this now here at, this is the side I want to go over here, so I want the paper to flow this way. So I'm going to we'll start on this side and then cut my way across. So this has already been cut down to the size I want, which was 5¾ by 7½. and I want to take 1 inch off of this side here. Which is that one. And then want to then take this over to 1 3/4 of an inch. I then want to then cut this at 3 inches. And then this last little piece here is the remainder. So you've got that one right here. So 1 inch, 1 3/4, 3 inches, and then that last one there will be down to 1 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so, and that's all by 5 3/4 high. So 5 3/4 by 1, 5 3/4 by 1 3/4, 5 3/4 by 3, and 5 3/4 by 1 3/4. This one here is the one which you want to now just take again. So I'm keeping these in order because my pattern paper is specific. I want the pattern to flow. So I'm taking this one right here. And I'm just going to cut this in half at 1 1/2 inches. And then I'll pop those back into position where I want it to be. All right, and then I'm going to then just take this one here, and I'm going to take 1 3/4. Sorry, I'm going to cut that down at 3/4, which is my top piece, and I'm going to take one there, which is 3/4 of an inch off the bottom, which is that one, and there's my middle piece. And I'm going to do the same with this one, so I'm going to now cut this one here at 3/4 of an inch. And then take it off the bottom 3/4 of an inch. Now I'm only doing it this way is because the pattern paper I want it to flow. So I'll show you what I mean right now. So if we bring this back in here, we're going to have this piece which is going to go on there, that bit which is going to go on here, that will go down the bottom, that one's going to go down the bottom, that one will go here, and then you've got these two which go on top. Now, if your pattern paper isn't, you're not worried about it flowing and following on the pattern, then just go ahead and cut your paper down to the sizes which I've just mentioned, and don't worry about it lining up. But if you need it to line up, you want to cut it the way that I've just going to show you. Okay. Once you've gone and done that, we are going to just pop these pieces to one side, so you can use these for some other pieces later on. We're not actually using these for this particular card, so this is some scrap which you can pop to one side and use again. I'm now going to fold and burnish all of this, keeping these all in order. Fold and burnish. So I want to fold this one in on itself, almost like you're creating a card this way. And with these ones right here, I want to fold this one down like that. So we're creating like a mountain. Then we want to create a valley. And then we create a mountain. And then this one here naturally wants to go up. Like that. And that's the start of this card right here. So just go ahead and just finish those off and just fold and burnish to give you some nice crease lines. Once you've gone ahead and done that, you can then go ahead and stick your designer series paper onto your card. So it was that one. So I'm just going to use Tombow. So I'm going to pop that one in there. This one will go here. This one will go here. And then I've got my two little pieces which go top and bottom like that, making sure that the pattern matches up and flows. Okay, so go ahead and stick those on right now. So we just need to pop some decoration on this now. So now this is dependent on what you've got. If you haven't got a die cutter machine, heat embossing, and able to do all of the fancy stuff, then you can just go ahead and you can then do some stamping on the panel, which we've got prepared for this one over here. And then you can then write your message over here. Or you can create a piece of, if you wanted to, you can cut down a bit of Whisper White cardstock, and then you can then mat and layer it over on this side here to finish that one up if you really wanted to. But what you can do, I'm going to show you now what you can do to now just decorate this card and take it a little bit further. And that there is the makings of your trifold card with your panels to fit perfectly. I'm going to want to do some stamping here first. So I've got myself my scrap pieces of paper, and I am going to stamp the elements. So I'm going to be stamping these two flowers right here, the stem, this flower head right here, and this one right here, along with the thank you sentiment right there. So what I'm going to be using, so first things first, this is a triple stamping set, or a double stamping set. So I'll show you how that works when I come to the flower head. I'm just going to be using Old Olive for the stem. And we're done with that. I'm going to take my Petal Pink, and I'm taking the solid elements from the stamp and stamping this in the lightest colour. Which is there. And then I'm going to take my Poppy Parade, and I will then do that in the darker colour, so the Poppy Parade there, and that's going to go over the top of that one to create some detail. I'm going to take terracotta tile, because that's the colour of the cardstock which I've used here. So terracotta tile, and I'm just going to take this stamp, and I'm just going to stamp 2 of these. Make sure before you stamp it that it has actually inked everything up. So you just go back over it again, check it, and then I'm just going to stamp 2 of those, like so. I'm going to grab another piece here, and I'm going to now stamp in Memento, the sentiment, so thank you. And I'm just going to pop that down there, like so. And we'll die cut those all out in a second. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to clean my stamps before I move on to the next part. So I'm going to take my Stampin' scrub and clean and dry as I go. So once I've done that, the last bit of stamping which I want to do is I'm going to stamp the stamens. I think they're called, for the centre of this flower here. This is just to give me a little bit of background colour, and I'm going to just do this in Memento, because I'm going to cover this up. If you want to keep it, if you don't want to do the heat embossing with the gilded leafing, then do this in the colour of your choice. I'm just going to do this in black, and I'm going to pop that over the centre like that. And that's just giving me some black in the middle there. And then that will shine through once I do a little bit of the gilding, gilded leafing in a moment. So just go ahead and clean this, because I do need this one more time. Lovely, so that's those pieces. I'm also going to take this part here now as well, which is the panel for this side right here, and I'm now going to do some die cutting and embossing. So I'm going to die cut all of these elements out using the Floral Gallery dies, and I'm going to emboss this piece using the Painted Texture 3D embossing folder. So I'm going to use the mini for the smaller dies, and then I'm going to use the large machine for the embossing folder. Next thing I want to do is I want to just emboss this piece right here. So pop our die cuts to one side, and I'm taking the painted texture 3D embossing folder, and I'm just going to run this through the larger machine just to pop a little bit of texture onto this bit of paper right here. So I'm using plates number 1 and 4 on the big cutting emboss machine. And once you have that done, this is what it looks like. So you can turn your bit of white cardstock and pop some lovely pattern on that right there. So that's we need to do some decoration, so we need to pop some of the gilded leafing onto this one right here. I want to colour this one and pop some gilded leafing onto this one as well. So I'm just going to grab myself a bit of scrap paper, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to take my terracotta tile. I've got myself a blending brush, and all I'm going to do is just gently pick up a little bit of ink, and I just want to do this gently. So I'm going to take most of it off and then just come over and just kiss the top of this cardstock right here, and then that's just going to pick up some of the pattern with the ink. I don't want to make it too dark. I just want to highlight the detail on the embossing. And there we have it. We'll see how that's changed that bit of paper. So next thing we want to do is I want to bring in some Versamark, and I want to stamp this center part again over the top of this black one right here. So it's because you can use the black to help you line this up. So you've got your wet sticky ink. And just place that over the top of that. I'm also going to take this piece right here, so just pop that to one side gently. Going to take this bit right here, and I'm just going to gently push it into the cardstock, just to transfer some of this wet sticky ink over to bits of this. There's not much on there, but that's all I want to do. I don't want to cover it, I just want it to get slightly sticky. So I've got that one. I've got some heat and stick embossing powder, and I'm just going to now pour this onto these 2 pieces of paper. And then we can then just pick this up. And you can see the powder has stuck to where I just stamped the Versamark. And I've got pieces on here. Not much, you can just about see it, but it's enough, and that's all I want. I don't want it, like I say, I don't want it to be covered. I just wanted highlights. And then we just pour this back in. So this is why you do this on a bit of paper. Pour this back in to our tub, like so. Now we're going to do some heat setting. So if you are new to heat and stick, then the tip for this is do not, I can't emphasize this enough, do not overheat this. Because if you overheat it, you'll lose the stick. So literally you want to get your heat tool nice and warm, then take it to your embossing powder. As soon as it changes, move it away. And that's it. Do not be tempted to overheat it. So I'm going to get this nice and hot, go in, and you'll see it change. And then once it's changed, move it away, and you're done. And that's it. It now changes from a powder to a sticky element. I'm going to do the same with this one. This is going to be a bit harder because you won't be able to see it as much. So I'm just going to, but I can just about see it, but just keep an eye on it, get it hot, and then heat it and melt it. That's all it is. So you'll be able to see the next part. I think there's a bit in the middle which I've just missed. Here we go. So now the moment of truth will come when we stick the gold leafing on. So I'm just going to pop these two here. You're going to need a brush, and I've also got like a very soft makeup brush as well to take off the excess once I put the leafing on. So make sure that if you're opening this, don't do it in a windy room with a fan on, cats or animals flying around, because this will go everywhere. Try not to sneeze, just try not to breathe whilst you're doing this. And what you want to do is you want to take a little bit out, and then you can then stick that on top, like so. Take off, rub it in with your finger, but not too hard. And then we'll just pop that to one side for a moment, because I want to get the lid back on this as soon as possible. Take some more and do the same with this, and just rub it over the top. And hopefully, if you haven't overheated, then that heat and stick will now pick up some of this leafing. We're going to rub most of this off. Literally, it's going to come, most of it will come off, but I don't want it to be, because I didn't want it to be too much. I just wanted to put some detail on the back of it. So there we go. So that's the start of that. If you want to get as much of that back into there as you can, and then pop your lid back on. So just bring this back over, grab your sponge, and then you want to, I've got one which has got a bit of glue, which is a little bit too rough on this side, so I'm using the soft part of our sponges, and then I'm just going to then just burnish this, and so you'll take most of it off again, but it's just going to add some highlights, and it will then move around some of the others and then colour up the stick to the rest of the embossing heat and stick. So that's all that is. So it's just added another element to that bit of cardstock, and we do the same with this one right here. Just rub off, just to bring off the detail, take off the excess, and then it will then just leave the detail behind on the center of that stamen right there, which is why I liked it when it had the black underneath it as well, because it helped make it pop off the page just a little bit more. So good. So there we go. That's those two elements done using the heat and stick and the gilded leafing. If you don't have a heat tool, you can always use Tombow glue, because Tombow glue is a two-way glue. So if you use it, and you can use a sponge, put it onto your stamps, and then let the glue dry. If you don't put anything on top of it, it goes tacky. So there's another thing. If you haven't got a heat tool, you can still use your gilded leafing just by using Tombow. And I'll try and do another video for that one, if at some point soon, to show you. So keep an eye out for that one. So lovely. So what we're going to do now is just stick this piece onto this card right here. So just position it in a way that this side is going to hide it when it's closed. And then to finish this off, I'm going to grab myself some of the mini dimensionals. I'm going to grab our take your pick tool, and I'm going to pop dimensionals on the back of all of these elements. And then once you've done all of that, just take your backing papers off and then stick this to your card. So if anyone's wondering why we pop these lines on the dimensionals, this is the reason why, really, because you can quite easily see what ones you have taken all of the backing papers off when you're using lots. It's just another way of easily identifying what you have and haven't used. Okay, so this one is going to go on to that one. So when that closes up, that gets hidden. I'm going to then take the Thank you. And I will then stick that in the center of this panel right here. Like that. And then these ones will then just go top and bottom. Like that. And there we have it. We have our finished trifold card right there. So that was the first one I made, which has got slightly different, which is the bottom half of the paper, so it's a bit more busier. And the top half is less busy. So we've got two variations of card there for you. And you can see on the first one I did a little bit more. I stuck it a little bit more with the heat and stick. But it's just showing you, it just catches the light perfectly. There. So there we have it. One trifold card using the Art Gallery stamp set. Lovely. Thank you very much for watching, and we will be back with you again hopefully next Friday with another Fun Fold Friday video. See you soon. Bye bye for now. Bye.